Close your eyes for a moment. Picture a land so vast, so open, so endlessly free that the horizon itself seems to go on forever. No skyscrapers, no traffic, no walls telling you where to stop and where to begin. Just wind, just grass, just sky. And somewhere in the middle of all that infinite silence, a single fire burning inside a round felt tent, while a child learns the name of every star above them before they learn to read a single word. This place is not a fantasy. It is not a scene from an epic film. It is real. It is ancient. And it is still very much alive. This is Mongolia. A land that once made the entire world tremble. A land that produced history's greatest conqueror, built the largest contiguous empire ever known to mankind. And then, just as quietly as a nomad folding up his tent, returned to the steppe, to the horses, to the wind, to the old, unhurried way of living that no empire, no invasion, and no century has ever truly managed to erase. There are countries that shaped history, and then there is Mongolia. A country that rewrote it. Landlocked between Russia to the north and China to the south, Mongolia is the world's most sparsely populated sovereign nation. Nearly 3 times the size of France, yet home to fewer than 4 million people. A place where you can ride a horse for hours in any direction and meet no one. Where the land is so vast and so untamed that nature here does not share space with humans. Humans simply borrow it. Respectfully. Temporarily. Generation after generation. But do not let the silence fool you. This land carries a memory that shakes the earth. In the 13th century, from these very same grasslands, a man rose who would go on to conquer more territory than any ruler in human history. Genghis Khan, born Temujin on the cold banks of the Onon River, united warring nomadic tribes through sheer force of vision, discipline, and a ruthless understanding of human nature. At its peak, the Mongol Empire stretched from the Pacific coast of Asia all the way to Eastern Europe. Over 24 million square kilometers of conquered territory. Nearly a quarter of the entire world's land surface. Entire cities fell. Civilizations trembled. And yet, and this is the part that history books often overlook, the Mongol Empire also created the world's largest free trade zone, protected the Silk Road, promoted religious tolerance centuries before the West debated it, and connected the East and West in ways that fundamentally transformed human civilization forever. The story of Mongolia is not simply a story of conquest. It is a story of a people so deeply connected to their land, their horses, their sky, and their ancestors, that no matter how far history carried them, they always found their way back home. Back to the steppe, back to the fire, back to the stars. And that is exactly where our journey begins today. To understand Mongolia, you must first understand its land. Because in Mongolia, geography is not just a background detail. It is a character, a force, something that breathes, shifts, and directly shapes every human being who dares to call this place home. Mongolia sits at an average elevation of 1,580 meters above sea level, making it one of the highest countries on Earth. The north is blanketed by dense forests and freshwater lakes, most famously Lake Kuvsgol, one of the oldest and deepest lakes in the world, holding nearly 2% of the world's fresh surface water. Crystal clear, bitterly cold, and achingly beautiful. A place that feels less like a lake and more like the Earth's secret reservoir, quietly kept for centuries. Move southward, and the landscape transforms completely. Forests give way to rolling grasslands, the legendary Mongolian steppe, stretching endlessly in every direction like a green ocean frozen in time. This is the heartland of nomadic civilization, the place where empires were imagined before they were built. And further south still, the land hardens, dries, and becomes something altogether more dramatic. The Gobi Desert, one of the world's largest and most extreme deserts, where summer temperatures soar above 40 degrees, a desert so harsh, so unforgiving, yet so hauntingly beautiful that it has fascinated explorers, scientists, and wanderers for centuries. This is the geography of extremes, and it produced a people of extremes. Tough, adaptable, and quietly extraordinary. Now step back into history. Long before Genghis Khan, Mongolia was not a unified nation. It was a constellation of fiercely independent tribes. The Merkits, Naimans, Tatars, and Karaites, constantly warring, raiding, and competing across the steppe. There was no written language, no shared identity, no single authority, just clans, horses, and an unending cycle of conflict beneath an enormous sky. Then came Temujin. Born around 1162 AD into a minor noble family, he experienced tragedy before he experienced power. His father was poisoned by rivals when Temujin was just 9 years old. His family was abandoned by their own clan, left to survive brutal winters with almost nothing. He was captured, enslaved, and humiliated. By every measure of his time, his story should have ended there, quietly, forgotten, in the cold. But the steppe does not produce ordinary people. By 1206 AD, Temujin had done something no one before him had achieved. He unified every Mongol tribe under a single banner and was declared Genghis Khan, meaning universal ruler. He then introduced the first written Mongolian script, established a merit-based military system, created a postal relay network called the Yam that connected his vast territories with remarkable efficiency, and enforced laws that applied equally to commoners and nobility alike. These were not the actions of a simple warlord. They were the foundations of a civilization born on the steppe, forged by the Gobi winds, and written permanently into the memory of the world. There is a word in Mongolia that has no direct translation in any other language: Zud. It refers to a specific kind of winter disaster, one so severe, so merciless, that entire herds of livestock are wiped out in a matter of days. Temperatures drop to -50 degrees. The ground freezes so hard that animals cannot dig through the ice to reach the grass beneath. And for a nomadic family whose entire livelihood, whose entire survival, depends on those animals, with nature so ancient and so deeply understood that it borders on a sixth sense, this is the reality of nomadic life in Mongolia. And it is far more extraordinary than most of the world ever stops to realize. The traditional Mongolian home, the jur, a circular felt tent engineered over thousands of years of trial and survival, is perhaps the most perfectly designed portable shelter ever created by any civilization on Earth. It can be assembled by a family in under an hour. Its circular shape deflects wind from every direction. Its layered felt walls, made from compressed sheep wool, trap heat with remarkable efficiency even when the world outside is frozen solid. The opening at the top serves simultaneously as chimney, skylight, and ventilation. A design so intelligent that modern architects have studied it with genuine admiration. Inside the jur, everything has a purpose and a place. The stove sits at the center, the literal and symbolic heart of family life. The western side belongs to men and tools, the eastern side to women and kitchen. Guests are always welcomed on the northern side, facing the door, in the seat of highest honor. Nothing in a Mongolian home is accidental. Every detail carries generations of accumulated wisdom. Outside, life revolves entirely around the 5 sacred animals: horses, cattle, camels, sheep, and goats. A nomadic family's wealth, security, and identity are measured not in money, but in herd size. Children learn to ride horses before they fully master walking. By the age of 5, a Mongolian child can navigate the steppe on horseback with a confidence that would astonish most adults elsewhere in the world. But winter changes everything. When the Mongolian winter arrives, and it arrives without warning, without mercy, the entire rhythm of nomadic life shifts into pure survival mode. Families move their gurs to sheltered valleys, positioning them carefully against the wind. Livestock are brought closer, watched constantly, fed by hand. When pasture disappears under snow, firewood and dried animal dung, called argel, become as precious as gold. Every single resource is rationed, respected, and never wasted. There is no complaining, no panic, no helplessness. Because in Mongolia, winter is not considered an enemy. It is considered a teacher, one that arrives every year without fail, demanding the same answer from every family. How prepared are you really? And the ones who survive, who emerge on the other side of that brutal cold with their herds intact and their families fed, they do not celebrate loudly. They simply begin preparing for the next winter. Because on the Mongolian steppe, survival is not a one-time achievement. It is a lifelong practice. Every civilization expresses its soul through 3 things: what it celebrates, what it worships, and what it teaches its children. In Mongolia, all 3 are woven together so seamlessly that separating them feels almost impossible. Because here, culture is not something you attend on weekends. It is something you live. From the moment you are born until the moment the steppe reclaims you, Mongolian culture is built on movement, music, and memory. The national festival of Nadam, celebrated every July, is perhaps the purest expression of Mongolian identity that exists. 3 disciplines dominate it entirely: wrestling, horse racing, and archery. These are not modern sports adopted for entertainment. They are ancient survival skills transformed into celebration. Young boys as small as 5 years old race horses across open steppes. Wrestlers compete not just for victory, but for the deeply respected title that carries the weight of community pride. Archers, including women, demonstrate a precision passed down through generations of hunters and warriors. The traditional music of Mongolia carries its own kind of power. Throat singing, known as kume, is unlike anything else on Earth. A single singer produces multiple simultaneous tones, a sound so layered, so haunting, that it seems to rise directly from the landscape itself. It is not performed. It is channeled. Ancient melodies that once accompanied warriors into battle now carry the quiet stories of a people who have outlasted empires. Spiritually, Mongolia is shaped by Tibetan Buddhism, which took deep root here in the 16th century. Monasteries became the centers of learning, healing, and community life. Monks were not removed from society. They were its most educated and respected members. At its peak, nearly 1/3 of all Mongolian men were monks, dedicating their lives to study, meditation, and service. Then came the Soviet era, and with it, the systematic destruction of over 700 monasteries. Thousands of monks were killed or imprisoned. An entire spiritual infrastructure was violently erased in a matter of decades. Yet Buddhism survived. Hidden in homes, whispered in prayers, preserved by ordinary families who refused to let it die. And schooling in Mongolia tells a story of its own kind of defiance. Historically, education lived inside the ger, in stories, in horsemanship, in reading the sky for weather. Today, children in remote regions travel extraordinary distances, sometimes boarding in towns for weeks, simply to access a classroom. Education is not convenient here, but it is chosen, deliberately and repeatedly, by families who understand that knowledge is the one possession no Zood can ever take away. Somewhere on the Mongolian steppe tonight, a fire is burning. Not in a grand hall, not in a palace. Inside a ger somewhere between the forest and the desert, beneath a sky so full of stars, it looks like the universe forgot to stop decorating. A grandmother is telling a story. A child is listening with the kind of attention that no classroom has ever quite managed to manufacture. And outside, horses stand quietly in the dark, patient, strong, and deeply connected to the people who depend on them. This is Mongolia at its most honest, stripped of everything unnecessary, reduced to what actually matters. And that is precisely what makes it one of the most remarkable civilizations our world has ever produced. We live in an age that measures progress in gigabytes and GDP, in follower counts and quarterly reports, in how fast things move and how much can be accumulated before time runs out. Mongolia quietly offers a different measurement entirely, one counted in the depth of human endurance, the richness of oral memory, and the unbreakable bond between a people and their land. This is a nation that produced the largest empire in history and then willingly walked away from the empire. A people who were nearly broken by Soviet oppression yet rebuilt their spiritual identity from the ashes of 700 destroyed monasteries. A culture that faces nature's most brutal punishments every single winter and rises every single spring. Not bitter, not defeated, but ready. What does that tell us about human potential? What does it tell us about ourselves? Sitting in our heated rooms, frustrated by slow internet and minor inconveniences. When we consider a 5-year-old Mongolian child racing across frozen steppe on horseback, already understanding more about resilience than most adults ever will. Mongolia does not ask for your admiration. It never has. But it absolutely deserves your attention. And subscribe to this channel with notifications on, because we are traveling deeper into the world's most extraordinary, most overlooked civilizations.